So, Ross.
Welcome.
We've known each other for a very long time.
Absolutely.
So tell us, the people who don't know about the Coopers Plains facility, just tell us a little bit about it.
Okay. For your knowledge, the Coopers Plains facility is a state government funded research and food processing facility. It's very unique. There's only 2 of these in Australia. One's in Brisbane and one's on the outskirts of Melbourne. We have the newest one. Of importance to food manufacturers and processors is the fact that we've got $40 million of infrastructure and equipment dedicated to product development, consumer sensory science, and pilot scale-up. In other words, we can do your formulation, we can test it with consumers, and we can scale production up to a ton so that you can actually move to a greenfield operation all underneath the roof we have. The facility itself is a $100 million facility. $40 million of it is dedicated to what we refer to as the food zone, which is an area which is actually Safe Food Queensland registered as a food manufacturing site. Because if you think about it, if you're dedicated to production and you can't stop your line to test a new production that you're doing, where would you go? You're not going to go to your competitor. Where would you go to test that? Well, hopefully you'd come to us. And that's the reason why both the state government and the Commonwealth government have invested enormously in that facility. On site, we've got the University of Queensland, CSIRO, and ourselves, Queensland State Government. So you've got access to researchers doing high-level research, and you've got access to technologists, engineers, and people from a production-based background, but qualified and experienced, that can actually take you through your food problem. Look, I can talk for hours on this, but Cameron, you might want to interrupt me.
So I'm just thinking, if you've got an idea and you don't know if you can do it, so you're not really, maybe you've got an idea or you've seen something, you don't know how to do it, how would you help someone like that if they give you a call and say, this is my idea, what do you think?
So classically what I do, I've got a 3-page questionnaire, because we discovered when I first started in the job that people would talk to me for 2 hours and not tell me what they wanted to do. So I've developed a simple confidential 2-pager, maybe 3-pager, that I send out to you to complete, and you return it to me. And based on that information that you fill in, I know which expertise to bring to the meeting with you. Otherwise, we could waste quite a few hours trying to extract exactly what you're trying to do.
Great. So you've got a program called the DAF pilot program. Can you explain how that works?
The DAF pilot program?
Yeah.
I was going to say that's new to me. Obviously, Cameron knows more than I do. What we have had is, last year we ran a program called the FIAL DAF Research Program, which I think is what Cameron's referring to. As you know, structurally, as the economy was moving away from mining and energy, we needed to reinvigorate traditional businesses. So we threw together some money with the federal government and we put out a support program, which only ran for a very short period of time. And what we did is we offered a dollar-for-dollar support for companies that had a problem, which was a technology-based problem that was stopping them from growing, stopping them from expanding their market, stopping them from getting into a new market area. And it was all technology-focused. The program itself went for about 3 months, and we were oversubscribed, and delivered that between March and June last year. It was actually quite successful. And out of that were quite a few products, which I don't think they've got on the screen. But if you're looking at the pictures that are on the screen out there, someone asked a question, I digress here, about how do we train people? We're training future workers for the food processing industry in these photographs. Because if you think about where do you get your staff for your factories, where do they go to get training? Well, we've just started the process of doing that in our pilot plant.
So, and is there still funding available to help sort of offset some of the costs of using this facility?
There is. The 2 major forms of funding that we have for technology/innovation approaches, which is develop a product or new process, Food Innovation Australia Limited and Innovation Connections. They're simple technology, rubber hits the road solutions that you can translate to your business. They can't be more than 12 months and they must have an effective outcome. Right? So it's not a research outcome with a paper that is quite elegant. It's about something that provides you with a solution, a product or process.
And do companies access, is there a research and development incentive in terms of being able to access these facilities if you're doing R&D with that facility?
Yeah, basically, again, in terms of incentive, the two major ones, most of the financial incentives come through the federal government, and those two incentives that we are locked into, well, not locked into, but tend to use, are the Food Innovation Australia Limited funding and the Innovation Connections funding. There is some funding through Advanced Queensland, which you could have a look at. Because we're a government agent, we can't access that directly, but you are able to access that yourself.
Talk us through maybe a few of the sort of companies that have come through the facility and some good success stories.
So classically, just so that you're aware of project size, our projects average about $26,000. They run between 3 and 6 months. In other words, that's the time it takes to deliver you the outcome. We find that if a project drops below $12,000, that you're getting very little out of it. The sorts of companies that we tend to deal with are SMEs, because that's the structure of the 12 to 1,400 companies that tend to inhabit Queensland. They're regionally based. The sorts of things that we're looking at is product development, developing a new product, waste management, and looking at extracting valuable components from commodities and reintroducing them back into food systems. We're also looking at the key thing that we're trying to do is to give SMEs either some new intellectual property or new art which makes them as a company more valuable to investors or to the world market. Because virtually all the projects we work with, we don't own the IP. The IP goes directly to the customer. All right? So that's a very important point.
Yeah. And in terms of businesses that use it, do they use it just for a specific project, or can they use it for an ongoing sort of sense as a production facility?
Okay, we've had some people come in and just get a formulation developed, or they get something checked. Some companies, such as the Not Nuts company, came to us with a little jar of a product, and we took that up to 1-ton manufacturing phase, and they started production late last year in a greenfields operation at Richlands. And that's the peanut butter replacement product, which I think you're seeing there, right? The other products that you're seeing there are the KFSU sugarcane fibre, which is the plant micronutrients. So one of the things we're doing there is that they've got a factory to extract the component. What we're doing is trying to work out improvements in productivity of that component in different food systems. So it means that they've got a report that goes out that says if you use X% of this in, say, a bakery product, it'll increase your yields by this amount and save you so much money, and also have a health impact of such and such. It's quite in-depth. My job is actually, as someone who's got a technology background, food technology background, and a business background, is to talk with the customer and take them through the shortest pathway to getting to a successful endpoint, using our infrastructure, equipment, and know-how.
And in terms of, I guess, companies that have come through, you see a lot of companies come through. What do you think is the difference between those that go on and become quite successful and those that sort of crash and burn?
Okay, yeah. Great segue question. One of the key things that we discovered in the program over the last 5 or 6 years, and because there's only 2 of us in Australia, it means that we're the only ones that are collecting this data. We're finding that some companies are just not able to manage the technology that we've developed for them. In other words, they lack the capacity to make it effectively work at an economic level. And that became a real problem for me as someone who's got both a science and a business hat. And I sent out a couple of feelers over the last 2 or 3 years, and only one company came through to assist, and that was a company called AltusQ. And on that note, I'm going to shift the microphone over to Daniel, who's going to talk about the really important aspect of having the right culture to be able to take a new innovation that's being developed and make it work effectively. Because where Australia fails is not in the science and the technology. We're brilliant at that. We're 19, I think, out of 142 for best science and technology. We're 119 out of 142 for actually making it economically viable. So on that note, I'll just shift over to Daniel.
Thanks, Ross. That's a lovely introduction. Yeah, I work for a company called AltusQ. We've been working about the last 18 years, principally in the SME space. Small, medium-sized companies, usually family-owned. And what we found with those type of companies is the ones that succeed are able to blend two skills and make them work together in harmony. So the hard skills, those commercial skills that companies need, they're usually strong in those areas. They've got something that's unique, a manufacturing process, a particular technical capability, particular sales acumen that's led them to where they are. But when they need to change and adapt and grow, they need to develop their soft skills, what we call the cultural skills. So the successful businesses in that space are the ones that can have both of those working in harmony in their business, working together at the right times.
Okay. So in terms of the process of managing innovation, is that something that can be sort of structured and learned, or is it just something that's very organic and you just got to sort of follow it along? Is there some tools that you can use to try and make that process better and have a better outcome?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are some tools. So this can be learned. So innovation isn't something that the sky opens and that you're magically ordained to be innovative. It is a process that small businesses, medium-sized businesses can learn. And we've been working with Ross and his team to understand how to map the innovation process that they run, the technical process, which is a stage-gated process, and look at what skills early on, both hard and soft, you will need to enter the process. So you need some understanding around product development, but you need the ability to just understand where your leadership style is. You know, what have been your strengths in that process? Build that self-awareness before you come in. If you've been running your own show for the last 10 years and been very successful, now you're going to have to collaborate with a team like Ross's to innovate. So what are the bases of collaboration? And then looking at each stage as they go on, that you start to build those skills, those softer cultural leadership skills.
So if you were to look across your experience in leadership and business growth, what's the personality trait that is a warning signal for you that would say, actually, I think we're going to have, this is going to be a hard case to crack here? What are those things that you really have to get under control if you want to be a good entrepreneur and a good successful businessman?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first thing is their ability to listen.
Yep.
So can you, very, very simple skills, can you actually listen to what's being told to you and seek help and guidance? Really say, well, look, I probably don't know what this is all about. How can you explain that to me? Be vulnerable about that. So that ability to have that self-awareness around what your strengths are and use those strengths and get help and support where the process itself, this innovation process, is going to require something different that you have. So the ability to listen, the ability to be self-aware, and the ability to take on help in the right way.
And where do you go? I mean, because we've heard that you've got to have the right team, the right resources. How do you go about, even in your business, when you see someone who's got a great product, got maybe the right attitude, but needs help, how do you go about finding that help?
That's a good question. So we're lucky here in Southeast Queensland, there's been so much done for innovation. So there's a lot of people that you can go to and talk and just ask them questions around, what do you think I need at this stage? Firstly, understand where you're at. You don't need sometimes the end game straight away. You need to get through that first stage. What is it about your product? So firstly, is talk to people who've been through that journey. Ask them questions around, what did you do when things weren't working? Yeah? What did you change in yourself? How did you realize that you needed to change your own behavior? So talk to a lot of people who've been through the process as well. And that's an important part of today. Yeah? When you're going out there and look at the people who understand your industries as well. So, in your area here around food manufacture, it's really understanding those industry dynamics, which is really important. It's probably not looking to say, well, can I be like big global tech company if your thing is around a food product and new food innovation. So talk to people who are in similar types of industries and talk to people who can help you with that cultural, your leadership skills, help you to understand what you're really good at and what you're really passionate around.
That's great. So just sort of lastly, and I'll throw this to both of you, when you see a product, I'm interested in the idea of the balance between how good is the product versus how good is the person that's actually driving it. How do you, when you see someone come in, how do you balance that in terms of what do you think is more important, the product or the driver, the person behind that product?
Both actually, but being a philosopher as well, I'd say the person starts first. The key thing that we find is that we can pretty much tell when a person comes to see me, which is part of my role, am I going to spend 2 hours with this person trying to work out exactly what they're trying to say? Am I going to have to drag the information out of them? And once we've dragged that information out of them, we then have to say, this is the due process that we take to make it from an idea into a real product. And the reality is this, is that research is about new knowledge, innovation is about a new product or service. So how do we get that information out, and then how do we convert it into something that's going to become a new product? And really drawing what quality that person needs to put in place to mimic what they're trying to produce is a very difficult thing sometimes to achieve. Bernadette, who talked before, she took her company from 5 people to 120 people. And just before she spoke to me, she said, the biggest problem I'm having is setting up the right cultural values or behavior of the organization to mimic or deliver the quality that I want. And this is the sort of thing that Daniel's working on.
So when Ross and I worked through this, we realized that the rate of technical innovation in a company needs to be matched by the rate of cultural innovation. And what drives that cultural innovation is really the leader, the owner of that business. So, that is really, you need to evolve along with that. So are you clear about your purpose in that? Why you would like to innovate? Be very clear about that. And are you ready at specific points to take advice, to look yourself in the mirror through what people are telling you, but also have a bit of belief in yourself that everyone can go on that journey?
Yeah. I guess I'm just wondering, in terms of a product being successful, I'm trying to work out how important is it that it's an absolutely incredible and amazing product versus a product that actually meets a need that is just executed really well.
Okay, I see where you're going. We're talking about the product life cycle here. Most people who come and see us want the purest product that is possible and conceivable to the human mind, right? I make them aware that you come to us with an idea. The moment that it becomes a real tangible product, there will be trade-offs. So your pure idea of what you think is going to be brilliant will be not brilliant when you produce it, and you've got to accept there's going to be trade-offs. What you can do is that from that base product, you can then start to carry out subtle improvements to build it to the levels that you might want to achieve. And what we find is quite often is that the person who comes to us has got such a refined idea, a high-level idea, that they're never going to get into production because they're never comfortable or accepting of what's being delivered. And that's a business conversation about, do you want a low, a medium, high level product? And that's based on the quality and the pricing position. And the reality that we have to deal with is we can say, for the budget you've got, you can get this, right? You're not going to get a Rolls Royce for the budget you've just told us you've got. So it gets back to this point about start with a product and then build it up.
Great. All right, well, look, I think that about pulls us up. So thanks very much for your time, guys. That was really enjoyable.
Thanks, Cameron.
You're welcome.